Hello and welcome back. Today's episode is all about how performers stay on top and how you can get started with nervous system capital today. For example, at the top, the most successful people are not the most stressed. That is a myth in leadership culture that most people have been mistaken on. The reality is the pressure that a person or executive faces along their success journey usually does eventually produce diamonds. The burnout or burnout culture is not just a term that we no longer associate with a badge of honor, and it's not necessarily even proof of ambition. So stick around if you want to dive further into this blog post that I have posted on my blog. www.migrainebalance.com is my website. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, so why regulation is the ultimate executive asset. Okay, when it comes to emotional control and management, the leaders at the top, they're not frantic, they are regulated. They know how to breathe, do breath work, plan accordingly, and manage stress proficiently. This is a skill acquired over time. And that comes from constantly being under pressure and learning how to manage it, especially if you're going to be a healthy person. Okay, because we know mismanaged stress can lead to unhealthy future outcomes. Okay, and that is what changes everything. High performers are not stressed, they're regulated. Stress is not the enemy. Dysregulation is. A regulated executive can enter high stakes negotiation without emotional leakage, absorb criticism without spiraling into self doubt, make bold financial decisions without cortisol driving the wheel. Make bold financial decisions without cortisol driving the wheel. There is nothing worse than making mismanaged decisions from a place of emotional dysregulation or stress. And that, my friends, comes into play whether it's through your nutrition choices or your shopping choices or making any decision without emotional regulation. Hold silence without needing to fill it. That calm, it's not a personality, it is conditioning. It takes time and repetition to learn these skills to be able to successfully manage your emotions so that you don't have to face nervous system dysregulation. Usually, what separates people from being in the circle or the room, or whether you're invited or not invited to address someone, acknowledge someone, be in the same room as someone, be at an event with someone or not, could be due to a nervous system mismatch. For example, moving forward into invitation lists, whether you're invited into a board meeting, to a private event, or whether you don't make it on that guest list, could simply mean that the environment is not aligned to your nervous system. It is not aligned to you. This is important to note, especially for the future, because in the future, we will not be programmed and working on programming that has been in the past. For many people, closing off those chapters with a lock and deadbolt to the past is non-negotiable on the success trajectory of growth. And therefore, in many circles, having acquaintances is acceptable. At the same time, if I say I don't know you, I'm going to have you agree that I don't know you and you don't know me. And that's just the way it is. High performers who last do not eliminate stress, they metabolize it. For example, we are open for work and hiring, and if you need a specific goal met and you have the funds allocated to hire a professional and reach out to us that you need help, that is one thing. But identifying and understanding that no, not everyone are your friends in the executive space. We're not friends. We might be acquaintances, and we're definitely not in that intimate circle of close trust that you can feel like you can call my name or reference me to any sort of position in your life that I will ever agree to unless I state a fact saying, I agree, this person is in my network. There's nothing worse than name dropping in a conversation with people who you know you will never be associated with in the future, who think saying your name gives them some sort of privilege. And this is where we really focus on nervous system capital. When your system is unstable, your decisions are reactive. When it is regulated, your decisions are strategic. Chronic cortisol and impaired judgment. Let's be direct here. Right? Chronic stress does not make you sharper, it makes you narrower. Elevated cortisol over time impairs prefrontal cortex function. And this is your executive decision center, reducing impulse control, increasing emotional reactivity, distorting risk perception, disrupting glucose stability, which destabilizes mood and focus. What you really need to do with your life is focus on your own world, your own family, and your own job. And separate yourself from understanding that unless you are a member of Migraine Balance in the Migraine Balance longevity protocol life path, where we are building centurions who want to move into living in their 90s and 100s on a specific life path that is very hard and very high discipline level entry. Stay in your lane, okay? That is how it works. If you want to invest, you're going to have to invest a lot to get over onto this side, okay? I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not here to discourage you either. But the levels of discipline required at these levels are similar to Olympic champions, and it's not for everyone, okay? So don't get confused with your ego, thinking just because you went to high school with someone that for some reason you are on the same life path as them. Because my friend, realistically, or my acquaintance, my audience, that is just not the case. Okay? There's nothing wrong with a little separation and division in the right ways, and that is a cold, hard boundary of when no means no, you don't get to step over that line. And these are the habits of the most successful people in the world. The amazing concept of the word no, because no means no. The more you can say no, the more successful you will be, whether that's in your weight loss journey, your success path, saying no to distractions, no to circles that are toxic, no to bad influences, no to negative habits. That is your secret code in life if you are an ambitious person with life goals in the future. No one is entitled to be around any other person in this world unless you get granted access through consent, whether that is communication consent, a signature consent, signing of NDAs, any sort of communication that is mutual, not one-sided, allows you to be in another level. If not, don't let your delusion fool you into positioning yourself in a circle that you are not part of. You may believe that you're operating at high intensity, but biologically, you're operating in survival mode. And survival mode does not build empires. It protects against threats. Being in survival mode means you have no control over how you eat and how you regulate your schedule on a day and week and yearly basis. If your body thinks you are under constant attack, you will unconsciously begin to hoard instead of invest, rush instead of evaluate, control instead of collaborate, overwork instead of delegate. This is not a mindset problem, it is a nervous system pattern. These patterns take a long time of coaching and neurological programming and emotional neurological reprogramming work to move through. For example, if your psychology and your mindset say that, yeah, I'm a healthy and fit person and I go to the gym, but at the same time, you're not focusing on upgrading your mindset. You're still acting as though you're a toddler in preschool with your habits, with your routines. It shows a clear gap in where you are, where you think you are based on your ego, and maybe depending on where you want to be. So it's important to be realistic, to really ground yourself in reality, to see exactly where you are based on the facts and figures, and exactly that time evolves, and it is important to identify what is important, who is in your circle, and who is not. Trauma loops sabotage wealth creation. For example, if you have unresolved stress and trauma imprinted in your body, this creates an invisible loop. Scarcity, even when there is money. Hyper independence, even when support is available. Fear of expansion, addiction to urgency. Difficulty resting without guilt. These loops are subtle, they masquerade as ambition. But if you look deeper, many executives are not driven by vision. They are driven by activation, routine, discipline, and repetition. Over and over, repeating, 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 repeating. Every athlete knows when you're training for, if you're Usain Bolt or if you're training Michael Jordan, if you're training for a sport, you are in a repetition phase of drills, 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 drills. Then you show up, you compete, and you dominate. That is the only way it works. Being in the practice arena where your training could be as rough and as creative, but whatever works to condition your mind to be able to perform on the race day is the key concept to differentiate the difference between training grounds and the real competitive arena. When the body equates calm with danger, because historically calm meant something bad's going to happen, you unconsciously recreate chaos. You overcommit, you overextend, you overreact, and you call it leadership. However, if you are regulated, you're able to use that calm to plan strategy, think ahead, create an action to-do list. There's no need to overreact or panic or be in a reactive state. Real wealth is not built from nervous activation, it is built from regulated expansion. Building calm under pressure is a trained skill. These are the skills and concepts we work through during coaching because this includes some of the highest form skills of breath work and extreme neuro reprogramming the brain to allow your physiology to understand the difference between survival mode and thriving. Calm is not passive, it is trained capacity. This volatility rises and you do not collapse into reaction. That is power. When someone attempts to provoke you and your heartbeat barely shifts, that is capital. First, you can see this person must be under me if they're trying to provoke me, number one. Why do they think they have the right to even enter my space to try to provoke me? And it gives you the perspective of this is below not only what I tolerate, but below what even passes my mind on a day-to-day basis, because that where you're at in your mind doesn't cross my mind at all, especially with high performers who are mostly focused on bigger goals, not small people, not small conversations, not gossip, but more ideas, negotiation, strategy. So if you're living in the past in anxiety and depression, and that is your routine, that does not mean that that is the experience of other humans on this planet, especially those who are on a growth journey in the centurion path towards longevity in their hundreds. And there are different life paths in this world that people can take. It is a conscious choice to decide what path you're going and how that will take you in your future. Okay. When markets fluctuate and you make measured adjustments instead of emotional ones, that's called maturity. It may be that many humans existing on planet Earth today, emotional maturity is that of toddlers and teenagers. And that might be a fact. We can get further research on that unless you have done hours of psychological development and training. We can fact check that in terms of, how many people are genuinely emotionally regulated and mature on planet Earth today. That's something we could find some numbers on. And staying calm under pressure can be developed through deliberate nervous system conditioning. This is not spiritual bypassing, this is physiology. The nervous system capital protocol. HRV tracking, measure what you manage. Heart rate variability. Is one of the most accurate indicators of nervous system resilience. High HRV reflects adaptability. Low HRV reflects chronic stress load. Tracking HRV via wearable technology allows executives to identify burnout before it crashes performance, adjust workload based on physiological readiness, optimize training intensity, prevent cognitive decline under chronic pressure. You would not ignore financial metrics, do not ignore physiological ones. Breath pacing protocols. Breath is never the fastest lever into the autonomic nervous system. Structured breathing, such as 4 to 6 breaths, 4 seconds inhale, 6 seconds exhale, box breathing, coherent breathing, these can all lower cortisol and increase the vagal tone within minutes. These are good concepts to apply before negotiations, before presentations, and before difficult conversations. Regulation is not just about suppressing emotion, it's about managing emotion through breath work, through breathing, through these skills. The wider your window, the more power you hold. Strategic recovery windows. High-performing executives schedule meetings. Elite ones schedule recovery. The nervous system requires oscillation, activation, and restoration. Strategic recovery might include midday sunlight walks, device-free evenings, resistance training, controlled stress improves stress tolerance, structured vacations where cognitive load truly drops. These might be mindful retreats on your vacations and spas. Recovery is not an indulgence, it's an infrastructure. The best athletes in the world who operate like executives know that you want to be training hard, recovering hard, training hard, recovering hard. Without it, output degrades quietly. Anti-inflammatory living. Inflammation is not only physical, it is cognitive. Chronic inflammation affects mood stability, hormonal balance, mental clarity, and sleep architecture. An anti-inflammatory lifestyle supports executive regulation, protein forward, blood sugar stable meals, vegetables and phytonutrients, omega-3 intake, strategic fasting when appropriate, sleep discipline. These recommendations are generic, and therefore, if you are applying any nutrition protocols into your diet and regime, you would like to get direct physician recommendations or nutritionist personalized recommendations so that we are aware, making a disclaimer. When your body is inflamed, your reactions are sharper. When your body is stable, your responses are measured. You cannot separate physiology from performance. Regulation is an asset class. We measure financial capital, social capital, intellectual capital. But the executive who wins long-term builds all of these in addition to nervous system capital because that is what optimizes health and well-being. Because when pressure rises, as it always does, your nervous system determines whether you expand or you contract, whether you build or sabotage, whether you invest or retreat, whether you lead or react. The most powerful people in any room are not the loudest, they are the most regulated. They do not rush, they do not chase, they do not fracture under heat. They hold. And that holding capacity is what allows wealth, influence, legacy, and love to compound. You may hear us thinking about compounding. We love compounding here in this space. And we would love to have more of these in our series upcoming for executives on allowing more compounding of these habits, skills, so that you could perform at your best. Your nervous system is not just a biological mechanism, it is your executive asset. Train it accordingly. Okay, so that was our little rundown for March. If you have goals, which I hope you do, if you're in this space, let us team up so that we could go to the next level. Migraine Balance is pretty VIP. It is a very exclusive club. We are a small channel on purpose as we grow to the next levels, and we are a minority of people who have similar goals and interests because you might notice when you have conversations with people, most people don't want to live until their hundreds. And that's why, if you're here and you're on this path with us, God granted, always, then we are going that way in the healthiest way possible. Okay, so until next time, I'm Annick Lewis. Like, share, and subscribe if you think someone might love this video and learn a lot. And I'll see you in the next one.